Red Bull's 2026 car has been banned by the FIA, and the reason will leave you stunned. It wasn't a flexi wing or a hidden DRS trick. It was a floor so advanced it could change shape using engine vibration without a single moving part. Developed in total secrecy with Ford, the system passed every test, until one final file revealed what it was really doing. Subscribe right now, because what the FIA just uncovered doesn't just kill Red Bull's car. It might change the entire direction of Formula One. Just weeks before their official 2026 car launch, Red Bull received a quiet but devastating notice from the FIA. In less than 2 pages, the sport's governing body declared their floor concept illegal, citing a new clause under aerodynamic compliance that didn't even exist when development began. Behind the scenes, that decision has thrown the team's entire season plan into chaos. What the FIA discovered wasn't just innovative. It was a structural system so advanced it changed airflow under load without a single moving part. The key wasn't what they built. It was how it behaved. Red Bull's new underfloor, developed in partnership with Ford's vibration analysis team, responded to internal energy generated by the engine itself. In simple terms, when the car accelerated, the floor adjusted airflow dynamically through passive material resonance. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't electronic. But it worked, and the data proved it. Once that evidence was submitted, the FIA moved fast. The scandal broke during homologation testing. Red Bull's car had passed all conventional aerodynamic checks, including the static flex test and vertical load deformation assessments. But it was during harmonic compliance validation, a newly introduced 2026 procedure, that the issue was exposed. The floor generated measurable downforce shifts when subjected to frequency patterns between 40 and 70 Hz, the same range created by the engine during mid-corner throttle application. That shift, though invisible to the eye, was enough to change how the car performed under race conditions. What shocked the FIA wasn't just the gain, it was the repeatability. Every test confirmed the same result: dynamic airflow realignment under consistent internal energy patterns. It wasn't luck. It was engineering. Red Bull had created a feedback loop between the engine and the aerodynamic platform, and they did it without violating a single traditional regulation. Until now, there was no rule against it. But after the data was reviewed, the FIA reinterpreted existing articles to close the gap. Red Bull had named the project internally as Resonance Floor. It was the result of 2 years of quiet collaboration between Red Bull Advanced Technologies and Ford's acoustic division. Using multi-phase composite layers, the floor subtly changed its surface compliance when exposed to vibration from the power unit. It didn't bend. It didn't flex. But the aerodynamic effect was clear: more stability in the rear diffuser and more consistent downforce at corner entry. In 2020's AXS low downforce regulations, that edge meant everything. The FIA's ruling was swift and absolute. In the final technical note, the design was classified as passively modulated aeroreactive architecture, now redefined as non-compliant under Article 3.7.2c. Red Bull had effectively engineered a legal gray area into a performance advantage. And that scared the governing body. Because if one team had solved it, others were surely not far behind. This wasn't just about banning a part. It was about preventing a design war the FIA wasn't ready to referee. And now, Red Bull faces a full redesign. The chassis was built around the floor's behavior. The diffuser shape, suspension geometry, even the engine mapping were all tuned for that system. Removing it means more than just swapping a part, it means recalibrating the entire car in record time. For a team that has dominated the hybrid era with razor-sharp precision, this is the most disruptive hit they've taken in a decade. And the worst part? The ban came not because they cheated, but because they succeeded too well. What most fans never saw coming was that the origin of this ban wasn't political, and it wasn't sparked by rival protests. It came directly from Red Bull's own technical submission. As part of the new 2026 homologation process, the FIA introduced mandatory system-wide compliance simulations, including how components behave under vibrational stress. That's where the anomaly appeared. Red Bull's floor didn't just survive harmonic input from the new Ford engine, it responded to it. That response wasn't visible. But it was measurable. And that's what changed everything. At the heart of the innovation was a frequency-tuned composite section within the underfloor tunnel. Unlike conventional carbon fiber layers, this one was constructed with alternating density gradients designed to amplify certain harmonics generated by the internal combustion engine. That meant when the engine reached specific torque bands, usually between 48 and 70 Hz, the floor experienced a microscale material resonance. That resonance didn't cause structural failure. It changed local pressure zones, redirecting airflow to boost rear-end grip at precisely the point in the corner where grip matters most. What's critical is that this system was completely passive. There were no moving parts, no hydraulic valves, no digital components. It was legal under every test the FIA had in place during design phase. Red Bull disclosed the materials. They passed the load deflection tests. They passed the FIA's vertical stress simulations. But they didn't because they weren't required to submit how the floor interacted with the live engine under actual load cycles. Once that data came in, the FIA realized the full scope of the design's capability. It wasn't just theoretical. In correlation testing, the system provided an average downforce gain of 110 to 130 newtons through mid-speed corners, with no increase in drag. That's worth nearly 0.3 per lap in real-world pace without touching the power unit, without changing the suspension, without compromising tire life. But more than that, it gave Red Bull the one thing engineers obsess over but rarely admit publicly: predictability. The car became more stable under mixed conditions, especially during corner entry liftoff. And that is race-winning behavior. Internally, the FIA's concern wasn't that Red Bull had found something new. It was that they'd found something repeatable, scalable, and invisible. If left unchecked, this concept could spread across the grid, triggering a new arms race in frequency-sensitive aero materials. And with the 2026 regulations already under strain from hybrid-era complexity, the last thing the FIA wanted was a war they couldn't regulate. So they didn't wait for protests. They reinterpreted the rules and cut the system off before it reached the track. The decision hinged on a single clause: intentional aerodynamic response as a function of internal system energy. By proving that the floor's behavior changed directly as a result of combustion-generated harmonics and not external load, the FIA reclassified it as an illegal aeroreactive device. This was a move not just to ban the floor, but to define a precedent. From now on, any part that passively shifts performance through interaction with the engine's internal dynamics is under threat. That's a line Formula One has never drawn until now. And here's what fans need to understand: Red Bull didn't try to break the rules. They tried to outthink them. This was innovation in its purest form, finding performance not through trickery, but through physics. They turned the engine's worst trait, vibration, into a tool. They made the car listen to itself. And that idea, perhaps more than anything else, is why the system was banned. Because in a sport where legality is often reactive, Red Bull simply moved faster than the rules could follow. Red Bull's innovation wasn't random. It was the result of 2 years of precision engineering between Milton Keynes and Ford's Detroit R&D labs. As the 2026 regulations pushed teams into unknown territory with drastically reduced fuel flow, tighter battery energy rules, and a total aerodynamic reset, Red Bull's design team knew they couldn't rely on old ideas. So instead of chasing horsepower, they looked inward. Into the engine. Into the energy itself. That's where the idea for a resonance-based floor was born: a system that could turn vibration, one of racing's most unwanted byproducts, into a controlled aero signal. It started with a simple question: can vibration shape airflow? In every F1 car, the engine sends rhythmic pulses through the chassis. These are normally damped, absorbed, or suppressed. Engineers spend millions fighting them. But Red Bull, working with Ford's acoustic engineers, decided to do the opposite. They mapped those frequencies, studied them, and then they embedded that data into the structure of the car itself. The result was a composite underfloor with tuned harmonic response, able to change the airflow under the car without moving parts, simply by responding to the pulse of the engine. The brilliance was in the simplicity. Instead of building a complex mechanical system to adjust downforce, Red Bull let the car self-regulate. When the driver hit a specific engine map mid-corner, the vibration frequency matched the tuned resonance of the floor. That caused micro-scale surface changes invisible to the eye, irrelevant in traditional flex tests but enough to restructure the boundary layer under the diffuser. The car stayed flatter, more stable, and more predictable through rotation. No added drag, no delay. Just grip, exactly when it was needed. Other teams have tried to chase dynamic aero. Mercedes experimented with variable rake floors in 2023. Ferrari explored active airflow routing via exhaust heat in 2024. But those systems needed sensors, code, and actuators. Red Bull's 2026 floor had none of that. It was passive. It didn't respond to the driver, it responded to the engine's heartbeat. That was the true leap, engineering a structure that behaved like a living system, synchronizing with internal vibration to shape performance. And once it worked everywhere from Bahrain to Barcelona, wet or dry. And the timing couldn't have been more critical. With 2026 cars forced to run heavier hybrid systems and stricter drag profiles, Red Bull had to claw back performance through efficiency, not raw output. The Ford F6, while powerful, still trailed Mercedes on thermal efficiency. So this floor became their equalizer. It gave them flexibility in cornering strategy, tire wear control, and energy deployment mapping. It wasn't about lap time delta in isolation. It was about compound gains, every corner more predictable, every lap more consistent, every stint more controlled. But that's exactly why it got banned. The FIA didn't act because the part was illegal on paper. They acted because it worked too well. In Formula One, disruptive ideas always walk a fine line. If they fail, they're forgotten. But if they succeed, especially before others can copy them, they're targeted. Red Bull built something that changed the design conversation across the grid. And with technical directors scrambling to understand it, the FIA pulled the plug before a second team could bring a version to testing. Now, Red Bull has to rethink not just their floor but their entire design model. Because when you build a car around a system like this, it touches everything: suspension stiffness, ride height targets, aero balance, tire strategy. The floor wasn't an add-on. It was the spine of the car. And without it, every assumption in the 2026 concept comes into question. They'll survive, they always do. But the edge they created, through pure engineering vision, is gone. And in a season where everyone starts from zero, losing that edge could be the difference between title contention and a year of damage control.